when I send it to you. I think the last page regarding your question about the difference between the court and arbitrators regarding liquid damages in your question 4. But anyway, I will talk about this point, even there is no slide. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's very glad to meet you through this kind of way, to the visual seminar. And my name is Zhao Dongfeng. I'm from China. And I think today I have learned and studied many things about many points about the liquid damages presented by the other guests. I think it's very useful. Before I go to my this topic, I want to share with you the the Chinese contract law. I mean the promulgate, how to say, the base or the history and all the historical reference of laws for codifying the Chinese contract law, especially the contract law. As you know, China made its own contract law with reference to the German law, German civil code, French civil code, as well as the English law and American law. So in Chinese law system, of course, mainly we see that Chinese law system is a civil law system, but we have our law also influenced very much by the common law. So if you have a chance to study it closely, the Chinese law, you will find that Chinese law has, to some extent, has some nature of combination, especially in the legal theory of common law and civil law. Okay, now go to my slides. I have got 4 questions, and I would like to share with you one by one. Now we go to the first question. You see, the first question is the liquidated or delayed damages is prohibited under the law of your countries? Of course, its question is under Chinese in China. In China, no. My answer is no. Chinese law does not prohibit the liquidated delayed damages, and Chinese law expressly provides the liquid damages. Now is a civil code, and before the civil code, we provided in a contract law as well as the civil principles. And now maybe you know the Chinese civil code has been publicly promulgated in the last year, so it's a new civil code. And also in China standard building model contract conditions, it is clearly provide the liquid damages clauses. Now you see in a civil code, article 585, first paragraph, they provide like this: the parties may agree, that means the party has the right, is authorized to agree that if one party breaches the contract, it shall pay a certain sum of liquid damages to the other party, of course, in light of the circumstances of the breach. And it may also agree on a method for the calculation of the amount of compensation for the damages incurred as a result of breach. So from this provision, you can see that in China, there are 2 kinds of ways to provide liquid damages. The first, that you just give a figure about in what circumstances you can charge liquid damages. And another way is that you can give a formula. For example, usually in our construction contract for delay damages, we will see that if one day delayed and the owner is entitled to charge how many blah blah per day for the delay. So it's very clear and Chinese law that liquid damages clause is no problem. And also you can see, okay, next slide. Okay. So you can see, above. Okay. Also in the model, in the Chinese model of building model contracts, I can also see something about the standard building model contract conditions. In China, for the construction works, especially for government financed or use the public fund for the projects, it is usually, maybe it's not strong, how to say, fully mandatory, but we can see to some extent it's mandatory to use the standard building model contract conditions. So in China, you will see many standard building model contracts. And I can see in every building model contracts, we have the similar provisions like this. I just show you the model EPC contract conditions, because these contract conditions was put to use this year. Yes, last year, I think this year, early of this year. So it's a very latest version of the standard building model contract. They call it EPC, model EPC contract. So in the second paragraph of subclause 8.7 and 0.2, it provides clearly that if the time for completion is delayed, which is attributable to the contractor will pay delay damages. So I can tell you from the civil code and also from the general practices in the construction industry and the Chinese law, liquid damages clauses or system is no problem, is allowed. Okay, that's my answer to the question 1. Okay, let's move on to the second one. The second one I put together because the question 2 and 3, I think, and the Chinese law, they are interlinked. So when I give you when I explanation, I think it's better for me to put together. Then that will be better for you to understand and not to be confusing. You see, the question 2 is: should liquidated damages be provided for in a contract? Would they be interpreted as a contract or delay damage penalties? Is there any limit or maximum percentage on liquidated or delayed damages, contract damages? Okay, next slide. I can give you. Next. Okay. So I can see like this. Just I believe that there is in this seminar. I cannot remember exactly whether there is a common lawyers who attended this seminar workshop. And common law, it's very clear, especially England law and Swiss law. And if the liquid damages is determined as a penalty, that means the clauses will be void or unenforceable. But in China, it's quite different. As I just said before, Chinese contract law or even civil law, they have the features of common law as well as the civil code, a civil law system. So in the Chinese civil code, for the liquid damages, we do not literally interpret the liquid damages as a penalty. And also in legal theory and Chinese law, we see that the liquid damages clause has 2 functions. One is that for compensation for the non-defaulting party. The other function is to give penalty. So that means, and the Chinese law, liquid damages clauses has 2 functions. One is for compensation. The other the other is for penalty. But of course, penalty has a limitation. You cannot penalty, very high. So later I'll explain to you. So it's very funny. Sometimes in some contracts, especially when Chinese contractors or employers, they usually use the Chinese wording, we call it fajin. If we translate it into English, it means penalty. Even we use the English word, for example, we use the English word penalty, the meaning equivalent with the Chinese wording fajin, the court or arbitration, or arbitrator, or tribunal will interpret it into it as a liquid damages. So that means to a large extent, I can say, under Chinese law, liquid damages can be a penalty. So they cannot interpret it as a contract penalty as defined under common law, because you know is an common law. If there is a penalty, if it is a penalty, the clause will be void. But in China, no. And of course, however, and the Chinese civil codes and the Chinese law, they also provide mechanism to adjust the excessively, we see excessively low or higher liquid damages. So it's quite different with the common law system. Then it means what? It means that if the amount of liquid damages calculated by the formula or the amount you provide in the contract is excessively low or excessively higher, that means when any party, the contract parties, can apply to the court or tribunal to adjust it. You see, on the civil code, the second paragraph, it clearly provides that where the amount of liquid damages agreed upon is lower than the losses incurred, the court or arbitration institution or tribunal may increase such amount upon the request of parties. Where the amount of liquid damages agreed upon is excessively higher than the losses incurred, the court or the arbitration institution or arbitration tribunal may appropriately reduce such amount upon the request of the parties. So you see from this paragraph, in this provision, it clearly said if excessively higher, what is excessively higher? It's linked with the losses, actual losses. Okay, next slide. So I give you.
Can you quickly, please, Jatan?
Okay, I'll give you a real case. You see the case is about a declaration contract. It provides that if there is a delay attribute to decorator, the decorator shall pay delay liquid damage at a rate of 5 in 1,000 of the contract price per day. The court held that the decorator was because the court said a decorator was attributable to the delay. That means they are liable to pay the liquid damages. But the court said that the rate of delay LD is excessively higher, and the court applies the rate of 5 in 10,000 of the contract price per day to calculate the total LD. So that's the real case. And of course, there is another article, or we call interpretation of contract law. There is a very specific and very important for Chinese lawyers provide regarding liquid damages. It says a finger. You see the finger? What? The article said that if one party claims the LD is excessively higher and requests the court to decrease, the court shall adjudge according to fairness and credibility based on actual loss, the degree of default of the parties and expected benefits, etc. If the amount of LD is 30% higher than that of the actual loss, it is generally regarded as excessively higher. That means that if it is regarded 30% higher than the actual loss, the court saying that it is too high. So you see, it's the 30% in Chinese law and regarding liquid damages is a very important figure. Okay, I just share with you for this point. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Okay, and also you can see just now the question also there is any limitation. Of course, there is if exactly higher. 30% is a kind of a reference figure. And also, it means actual loss because it's linked with actual loss. So under Chinese law, there is a limitation for actual loss. It says like this in the Civil Code, Article 584 said that where a party fails to perform its obligations under the contract or its performance fails to conform to the agreement and cause a loss to the other party, the amount of compensation for losses means actual losses, that will be equal to the losses caused by breach of contract, including the interest receivable after the performance of the contract, provided not exceeding the probable losses caused by the breach of a contract, which has been foreseen or ought to have been foreseen when the breaching party concludes the contract. So even for the actual loss, there is limitations. That means the non-defaulting party cannot claim actual losses as much as it can. We have a foreseeable principle. So that I think that's my brief answer to the questions 2 and 3. And as I said before, there is for the arbitrator and court's opinion regarding any difference between liquid damages. I can tell you briefly that and Chinese the court, the arbitrator usually has a much more discretion regarding the amount of liquid damages compared with the judge. And also in China, as you may know, Chinese has some we call interpretations of the contract law or some law promulgated by the Supreme Court. And the arbitrator in China is not obliged to use interpretations. They can be used, they can use, they cannot use it. It's not an obligation to use the interpretations. So, but the court has to use it.